Ode to Aptera, the most efficient vehicle on the planet. Aptera cruising, wingless flight. I love Aptera, it feels so right. Glides down the highway, taking off from the sun. No more drilling, can't you see?
Welcome to my Aptera Journey special interview. Today we have,
Bill with Chasing Aptera.
so we have two YouTube channels here, My Aptera Journey and Bill with Chasing Aptera. And the reason today we wanted to share a conversation together was Bill recently went to the Electric Vehicle Association meeting in California at Aptera headquarters. And I want to share with you, viewers, some insights that Bill has been able to gather for us, and he's been gracious to share. So, Bill, are you ready to share with our audience?
I am.
I'm an electrical engineer. I've designed microcontroller systems. Interesting tidbit, I actually designed a solar tile well before Elon Musk did. And I raised some angel capital, flew off to Europe, signed some deals in Germany. And then I got a little intimidated because I knew I'd have to raise like another $100 million or something. And that was my first startup where I was thinking about I have to raise a lot of money.
I spent the last 30, 40 years in the Dallas, Texas area, where I worked for Verizon. I'm retired now, but at the time I was an enterprise architect designing fiber optic networks. I designed the fiber optic network for the city of Plano and have worked on the wide area networks for Dell and IBM and Microsoft. So fortunate that I was always at the bleeding edge of technology that was being introduced. So I was there when the telephone companies broke up, when AT&T was broken up, and there was a lot of demand for people to administer phone systems. I was there when Verizon decided to get into the long distance business. I was there when digital communications took over from analog communications, when fiber optics was introduced, when voice over IP was introduced, when software defined networks were introduced. So I was just always lucky. When Fidelity, I worked for Fidelity for a while, when they decided to create a telecommunications department. It was two of us in that department, and the other guy had had gotten the highest score on a computer programming aptitude test of anybody, and he taught me programming. So I was just lucky, completely lucky in my career.
And we actually have a lot more in common than we may have realized. My first career was in telecommunications. First, I went into the Army and I was a microwave communications technician. Then I went to Ford Aerospace in the Bay Area and worked on optimizing the phased array antenna system on the Intelsat 5 satellite as a technician. Then I went to Seattle and worked for Ma Bell in Seattle in a radio and television shop. So we maintained and installed all the two-way radios, the microwave used for television, I used to go down to the old Kingdom and microwave the Seahawks games. From there, I went after that transition. I was getting my double E at the time when the Ma Bell broke up. After that, I went into the cellular industry. I worked for Sprint as a network operations supervisor. I was always more focused on the outside equipment rather than designing topology. I did consult for the fiber optic system in the new Denver International Airport. That's a trick getting cables in the control tower because it's mostly glass. There's just like this little channel in each corner. You have to get everything down to little channels. Nortel Networks. I was at Nortel Networks designing cellular systems when the .com crashed. I can't believe that Nortel is crashed and burned. Leading Canadian company. Yeah.
Their headquarters were right down the street from one of Verizon's offices. We used to do a lot of business with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a small world, huh? Share with you a personal story. When I was designing the solar tiles, and that was early 90s maybe. At the time, I started to study the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere. And this would have been early 90s maybe, something like that, late 80s. And I remember reading, holy cow, if we get to 400 parts per million, it's a sign of extreme danger. And then, I think it was 2013, I was just listening to NPR or something, and they said scientists in Mauna Loa Volcano Observatory out there in Hawaii said, global CO2 has reached 400 parts per million. And something clicked in me. I went out and got myself a plug-in Chevy Volt, and I learned how to drive with a Volt. A year or two ago, at my house down in Salem, Kaiser, I put in a heat pump heater. I put on solar. I put a heat pump hot water heater in, and then I had the gas disconnected. Driving efficiency and decarbonization is all what I'm about. The takeaway from the story is, since I learned that we hit 400 ppm, I've just been driven on how can I decarbonize more. And that's why I'm here. Yeah.
We're slowly working our way. We have two hybrid cars. I have a 2007 Prius, which I hope to replace with the Aptera. We rented a Tesla Model Y when we went to San Diego, and I loved it, absolutely loved it, and my wife loved it. And so I have a funny feeling that her next car will be an electric car. Yeah, we when we moved into this house, we only moved into this house 7 years ago, and it has gas and electric, and but we plan to replace the hot water heater with something that's electric and tankless. We have solar. We put solar cells on the roof, and we're getting there. We're getting there. I made the mistake of putting in. Yeah, we redid the kitchen, and I made the mistake of putting in gas, a stovetop. I wish I'd put in induction instead, but we're evolving.
The first thing I'd like to ask is, can you tell our viewers how the interview that you did, and I'm going to share a section of that with my Aptera viewers, how the interview came about with Chris Anthony?
Well, the great thing was Chris was just totally accessible. I mean, he was all over the place, as was Chris McCammon, who's their content manager. So it was not a big problem to corner Chris and ask questions. I was among many who did that, and he made himself fully available.
So let's watch that video right now.
Don't mind too.
What's up, Rich?
This is his question, and I don't know what it means. So you'll. He has a financial background. Have you considered syndicating the Regulation D offering?
We have, and we're talking with some banks right now about doing that. The great thing about doing a Reg D accredited offering is it keeps it kind of off the books of the Regulation A offering. The Regulation A offering is for basically anybody to invest in an amazing idea like ours. But the Regulation D, you need to be accredited. You need to have $2 million in the bank or make more than $600,000 a year as a couple and $300,000 a year as an individual, I think. But it's a more limited audience for the accredited offerings, and the SEC says, okay, you've got a lot of money, so you know how to use your money. So, we're talking about that as we speak, and I think we're having a lot of positive movement in some areas. Hopefully, be able to sign a debt deal pretty soon, and then work on those other investment deals and get to production, have an IPO. Have a big celebration, take our picture at the stock exchange. Everybody's happy. So, thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
So after that conversation with Chris, how could you summarize that interview?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I have no sense of that he isn't fully involved, doesn't fully understand the technology, doesn't fully understand the business model. I really had a good sense, a good confidence that they know what they're doing. They're doing it at their pace, at a smart pace. They're not trying to rush. They want to do it right, and that gives me a lot of confidence.
So thank you for sharing with our audience about that visit with Chris. So my question now is, how did the interview with Mr. Cameron come about?
Well, he was standing outside with everybody mulling around. They had the 3 prototypes parked outside, and everybody, of course, was taking pictures. And I just walked up to him and said, "Hey, can I record and ask you a bunch of questions?" And I should also mention that when I mentioned your name with Chris Anthony and mentioned your name with Chris McCammon, they just brightened up, and they both said the same thing. I love Rich. So they know you. But again, totally accessible, totally open to answering questions. Did so with enthusiasm, did his best. He wasn't able to answer all the questions, but did his best. I was able to ask a couple of questions that a couple of my viewers had posted in the comments, knowing that I was going, and I was able to share some questions that you gave me. So, so you're the perfect person to ask this.
Yes.
Open pilot.
Okay.
Any time frames? Do we know how soon after the launch edition comes out?
So what we're obviously focusing all our engineering resources on the launch edition, but after that, we're going to make a small Tiger team that makes the hardware for Open Pilot. And we have the connector up there, so it's all pre-ready to go, even on the earliest vehicles. So I would guess it'd probably be another quarter or so after the vehicle comes out that we'd have an official Aptera Open Pilot integration. But in the meantime, it's right to repair. You can just hook up a off-the-shelf combo device pretty soon after delivery, and it would work. So.
Oh, that's great. Someone on the channel asked if they had a bulky item to transport.
Yeah.
Could you drive it with the back hatch open?
Sure.
You lose some aerodynamics.
Yeah, you'll get a little, you get a little warning that's like, trunk open, but you can drive it, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about, is there a schedule for when the crash testing will be done and completed?
Yeah, it's tough to say because we're still waiting on the body and the frame from Italy. So, once those come back, we have to start making our first PI vehicles. Once those are complete, then the next phase of like the first three are basically not crash. They're other important systems, like more important range and things like that. I think the second three are crash. So it's hard to give a timeline until we kind of know what we're working with their timeline. So.
Yes. You've never been asked these questions before, right?
I actually never been asked either of those before
Really?
in that way. Yeah, so those are great.
So there's a Aptera ambassador named
Yeah.
Rich Rodriguez.
I love Rich Rodriguez.
And we became pen pals, I guess.
Oh, cute.
Because I created a channel called, I originally named my channel My Aptera Odyssey.
Yeah.
And he has one called My Aptera Journey.
Yes. Yeah.
And he did not like the fact that I picked the name I picked.
Oh
so
my
I
gosh.
agreed to change it. And
That's funny.
We became friends after that.
Oh, cute.
And so we had a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah. We'll see if I'm the person to
See if
answer.
you can. So the steering system,
Mhm.
you've got motors in each of the wheels.
Yeah.
So how does the steering system work?
So it's power steering. It's a mechanical linkage. So it's very traditional, like a normal vehicle where you have the push rod that tilts the wheels in either direction. So there's really nothing abnormal about the steering system. It's just like any other car. It's not like a drive-by-wire or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
That's fabulous, Bill. Did you get a chance to ride in the vehicle?
No, unfortunately, I did not. I got to sit in it, but I did not get to ride. The Electric Vehicle Association is very big, and knowing that it was at Aptera's headquarters, there were a lot of people who made the trip. I may have come from the farthest location, but there were people from all over the United States there. And so they had to do a lottery. And they used a random number generator and picked out 30 people out of a couple hundred people, I guess. And neither me nor my wife made it. So I was left to, but I did have a good interview with one of the people who was 6'8" and got to ride in the Gamma, and he was gracious enough to let me interview him after his ride. And spoiler alert, he thought it was great. He felt like he had plenty of room. His one leg felt a little bit cramped, but I guess Chris McCammon explained to him that particular piece was being modified in the launch edition. So he was happy to hear about that.
Wow, would you say 6'8"?
Hey, big guy, nice guy.
Big guy.
He had plenty of room, and when I sat in it, there was plenty of room. There's a lot of engineers in the EVA, and they had a lot of questions, and he was happy to answer all their questions, and he had good answers. I mean, he knew the answers to the questions.
Were there any surprises that you had at the EVA meeting or during your time with Chris or Mr. Cameron or chatting with folks? What kind of surely you had some surprises?
Well, I the thing that jumps to mind is Chris Anthony did a demo explaining the solar panels. And apparently, they've done some outstanding work that they've patented. He showed how you could break one of those panels and it would still be 90% efficient because of the way they're manufacturing and designing these panels. And these panels will flex on different axes. So that was one of the things that just struck out. I mean, the solar capabilities of this vehicle are real, and they've got the technology to prove it. Not just word of mouth. They've got the patents to prove it.
Well, I can say I've also been impressed when they went from like a polycarbonate sheet to the the glass film sheet. I think that was an order of magnitude refinement. And my guess is it was probably something similar to Gorilla Glass on our phones.
He actually made that comparison. He
Yeah.
pulled his phone out and said, that they've come a long way with the glass on these phones. It's the same thing with these panels.
Who else did you talk to with Aptera besides Chris Anthony and Mr. Cameron?
Well, there was only 3 people there. There was Chris Anthony, there was Chris McCammon, and there was Audra. And
Okay.
I pulled Audra aside and asked her if I could become a brand ambassador, and she said, sure. Took my name, and a couple of days later, I got my email saying that I am now a brand ambassador for Aptera. So I'm pleased as punch to hear that.
Welcome to the tribe.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then finally, you have interviews you've taken, you have video you've taken. As you go talking with people in your friends and family, your circle, what are the key takeaways that you share with them?
I think it's real. It's going to happen. And the technology is leading edge. I mean, this is I think that when this car hits the roads, not only will heads turn, but attitudes will change. And I think you'll see the other companies taking points from Aptera on ways that they can do their manufacturing better. And I think you're going to see I don't want to call it a revolution, but I think things are going to change. And, I'm not the type of person who likes to draw attention, fully realizing that I'm definitely going to be drawing attention with this car, but I think it's for a very good cause.
Well, 2 points that I note in what you just shared, and thank you. Number one, I think attitudes will change. It's going to change what people think about what do I need to transport myself to the grocery store? Or what do I need to go 100 miles to visit my children or my friends? You don't need 3,000 pounds, 6,000 pounds, 9,000 pounds to do that. So I think that's a really interesting comment. Attitudes will change. And I think the other point that I latched onto there was my wife is also concerned about it's going to draw attention, and it will. And for a good reason, good cause. So she's asked repeatedly, will there be a Sentry mode? So those are some great takeaways, Bill. Yeah, it's going to change attitudes, and it's going to be a looker. And that being a looker is going to draw, as most of us in the Aptera community know, it's going to draw more sales.
I was just going to say the Department of Transportation has statistics that say most people commute. They commute less than a couple hundred miles, and they only have 1 or 2 people in the car when they're commuting. So it makes complete sense to have a car for commuting that you don't ever have to charge, and maybe a second car if you have a family to do trips and go to the soccer game or whatever. But there's definitely a case for having a 2-seater for commuting. And it fits perfectly into our lifestyle, for sure.
Mine as well. Bill, I want to say thank you, Bill, from the Atlanta area, from the Chasing Aptera channel. Be looking for a link down below to Bill's channel. I want to say thank you for sharing some time together here today on my Aptera journey. And my guess is we're going to see each other together before too long again.
I hope so.
Bill, do take care. Thank you so much, and charge on.
Thank you. Same to you.
Cruising, wingless flight. I love Aptera, it feels so right. The future is now. Protect Mother Earth. Keep her healthy for what it's worth. What's your pleasure, Luna or Soul? Let's save the planet, we're on a roll. Glides down the highway, taking off from the sun.